Good news, look at this. It is rare when we have good news to report to you, and especially about the Obama administration and the NSA program. What is this? How could this be happening? But it's true. And I'll tell you how it's happening at the end of this story. It turns out President Obama has a new proposal. Now, he needed one by March 28th. That's what he'd promised in January. And that's when they had to finish the reviews. And it turns out his new proposal is actually very good. Let me quote the New York Times here. Under the proposal, data about Americans' calling habits would stay in the hands of phone companies, which would not be required to retain the data for any longer than they normally would. So now this needs a little deciphering so you understand. Normally, they could hold data for 18 months. That was federal law. Now, George Bush initially, when he told the phone companies that the NSA was just going to take their phone records, said that they would take them for 5 years. Now, when George Bush first did it, it had no legality whatsoever. So wildly illegal and unconstitutional. There's no question about that. In retrospect, in 2006, when Bush was still in charge, but a lot of Democrats went along, they said, all right, we'll make it legal in retrospect. And then you thought that Obama would get rid of the program because he had all those placards about change when he first came in, but he didn't. He kept the program. And they would collect all the phone records from all the companies and keep them for 5 years. Now, we found out because of Edward Snowden that was the case, and that they were collecting records on all of our phone conversations, all 300 million Americans. And then since he got in trouble for that, he said he would reform it. So the reform has begun. So good. It's no longer 5 years. We're back to 18 months as it used to be. And NSA doesn't get to keep it. Let me explain further. The government will no longer systematically collect and store records of calling data. Now, this is also important for another reason. Now, could they access it from AT&T, Verizon, et cetera? Of course they could, right? But that's okay, because if you think you got a bad guy, you do want to be able to access the records from AT&T and Verizon, as long as you actually have information and evidence against the bad guy, right? Now, if the government collects it from all the different phone companies, well, they have this one big database on all of us. But if the phone companies keep them, well, then it's dispersed. There's no central database. AT&T has those records, Sprint has those records, and it's hard for one person to pinpoint a political enemy, for example, and to try to track him down. Now, again, if you have evidence of a bad guy, no problem. You're going to get a warrant, and then you're going to be able to track him down all you like. In fact, New York Times says it would obtain individual orders, meaning referring to the NSA, from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to obtain only records linked to phone numbers a judge agrees are likely tied to terrorism. That's the most important part here. It's no longer the executive branch saying, I'd like to spy on that guy, and my check is the executive branch. That's not a check. That's not how our government is supposed to operate. We're supposed to have checks and balances where the three parts of government check one another. So in this case, you're going to get basically a warrant, like the Fourth Amendment says you have to get a warrant, right? So they're going to go back to a constitutional system, at least in this regard, and go to a court, and the court says, yeah, I think you got a bad guy. Go get the evidence on him. Great. I want you to get evidence on that guy. I want you to keep us safe. What I don't want you to do is spy on 300 million innocent Americans and do that in an unconstitutional way. You're going to bring it back inside the Constitution. I couldn't be happier. Now, look, there are still other parts of the program that are problematic. They do collect bulk data in other ways. And by the way, yes, this does not address any of the things that they are doing online, which is perhaps even more egregious. But at least the phone program, they're getting back within the Constitution. Great news. New York Times explains further. They would also allow the government to swiftly seek related records for callers up to 2 phone calls or hops removed from the number that has come under suspicion, even if those callers are customers of other companies. Now, in the past, it used to be 3 hops. So they say, look, I got a bad guy over here, Bob Smith, right? I want to see everybody he talked to and everybody that they talked to, and then everybody they talked to. Well, when you go 3 hops, that's almost all the country anyway. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but not by much. When you limit it to 2 hops, well, then you've got a much narrower field. And by the way, I agree with 2 hops. I think that if you got a bad guy and you got evidence on him, maybe he's plotting something, should you be able to see the records of the people he talked to and the people they talked to? I think that might be reasonable as long as you've got good evidence to support it. So I'm happy with that proposal as well. Finally, the government has been unable to point to, and I love this part of the article because it explains why they had to change. The government has been unable to point to any thwarted terrorist attacks that would have been carried out if the program had not existed. So this incredibly important program, both the Bush administration and the Obama administration told us for all of this time, and remember Obama's had this program for over 5 years now, which is so important, so important. Well, could you point to a single case where it helped you stop terrorism? Nope, not a single case. Well, maybe it's important for other reasons, for you to track your political opponents or whoever it might be. So now, finally, since they couldn't point to any evidence and Snowden outed them, and they were embarrassed, well, and they faced some political opposition, by the way, both from the left and from the right, both libertarians and progressives, not establishment Democrats, not establishment Republicans. To this day, Dianne Feinstein, who was so outraged that the CIA spied in on her, is still perfectly happy with the old program that Obama had. And she's not sure she's going to agree to this new program that has constitutional protections for actual citizens, okay? So establishment screwed us left and right on this. Okay, now Obama's bringing it back in because of whistleblowers like Snowden and the reaction that it got from actual libertarians and progressives. Now, Glenn Greenwald, of course, who broke the story, is going to jump in and make some good points. He says, the fact that the president is now compelled to pose as an advocate for abolishing this program, the one he and his supporters have spent 10 months hailing, is a potent vindication of Edward Snowden's acts and the reporting that he enabled. Well, it would seem to be hard to argue against that, right? Edward Snowden let us know about this, and that's why we changed the whole program. President Obama changed the whole program. Maybe it makes sense to let him back in the country. He was obviously a whistleblower, and he did nothing wrong. Glenn then goes on to say, first, a federal court found the program unconstitutional. Then one of the president's own panels rejected the NSA's claim that it was necessary in stopping terrorism, while another explicitly found the program illegal. Now the president himself depicts himself as trying to end it. Whatever tests exist for determining whether unauthorized disclosures of classified information are justified, Snowden's revelations pass the test with ease. I just don't see how you could argue against that. How can you say that this whistleblower who led to the president himself changing the laws to get it back within the Constitution is someone who's a wanted criminal and a fugitive and should not be allowed back in this country, and if he comes back, should be arrested? How could you possibly make that argument? I don't know about how the establishment feels about Snowden, and my guess is not very good. I know how I feel about him. If you weren't already convinced, this is obvious proof that he was, in fact, and continues to be today, an American hero. Anyone who can get any of our presidents to actually follow the Constitution has done something incredibly heroic.